With exams just months away, it is very easy to feel anxious and mess up on your revisions. And without a proper revision, it's very hard to get a smooth exam experience. Are you a candidate of O levels or A levels examinations? Or maybe you have your AP examinations coming up and you are not quite done with your revisions. Remember that revisions are as much important as finishing the syllabus, and usually there are a few steps that you can take to ideally complete the revision process, and luckily for you, I'm here to talk all about it, what works and what doesn't. Step 1. Finishing the syllabus at least once. Now, this may be obvious, but you're obviously not going to sit for your exams without ever finishing the syllabus at least once, right? Each board of examination, for example, Edexcel or Cambridge, has their own set of syllabi that they regularly update on their own websites. And even though they may look very, very similar, there are very slight differences that should not be ignored. For example, in the IGCSE Cambridge syllabus, they included the extraction of zinc, but in the O-level Cambridge syllabus, they have excluded that. So if you are a student of IGCSE and but you finished your syllabus following the O-level syllabus, then there's maybe a chance that when in the examination you will be asked about the extraction of zinc, you'll be found, um, you'll be quite surprised, right? To avoid situations like this, it is very important that you and your teacher understands the syllabus and the board examinations very, very well so that the syllabus can be completed in the best way possible. The usual time to finish an O-level syllabus is 1 year, and the same time should be allotted to AS syllabus as well. And there are some students who wishes to finish the syllabus within only a few months prior to their exams. Now, not only that is a huge burden for the student, but it is also a huge pressure for the teacher as well to finish the whole syllabus and condense it into a very short weeks or months. Now, these type of things can be dealt with by something called crash course, but this is usually where we speed through the syllabus together. But my suggestion would be to avoid this as much as possible. Another important thing to keep in mind regarding finishing the syllabus is that you understand the concepts very well. Memorizing everything is not going to award you marks in the examination. Now, there are certainly a few things that you can memorize and needs to be memorized. For example, the charges on the transition metals or the positive color change in a starch test. But apart from these things, there are other things that not only you need to memorize, but you also need to understand the concepts behind them. Instead, try understanding the concepts behind them, ask more questions, take help from your teachers, and take help from the solutions in the book to make sure that you know what you're reading. Like, for example, you can easily memorize the positive test, the positive color change for an alkene test in bromine water, right? But don't be dumbfounded in examination when you are asked the exact explanation of why bromine loses its color. There are some occasions where they ask you to define a new word that they assume you have never heard of. Like, for example, in IGCSE Biology Paper 2, there once was a question. In the article, they mentioned the word superovulate, and then in question number A, they asked you to define what the word superovulate means. Now, in this type of situations, you are supposed to rely solely on your common sense to answer this type of questions. Now, at the end of step 1, we are now going to discuss what works. So in short, taking time to finish your syllabus definitely works, and understanding the concepts behind them definitely works. But what doesn't work is speeding through the syllabus and just memorizing everything on the go. All right? Okay, now for step number 2. In step number 2, we revised and solved question papers, which are chapter-wise question papers. Now, congratulations, you have finished your syllabus once, and in the process, you may or may not have solved some book questions. But what is important now is that you revise it once more. Take one chapter a day and finish it. Take help from the notes, revise the notes, And occasionally there are very small chapters sometimes. So for those smaller chapters, solve two chapters a day, right? Revise two chapters a day, and in that way you can finish the revision process of the book, the whole revision of the book, in only under 2 or 3 weeks. In the ideal revision method, you must solve chapter-wise question papers. Now, for example, take the disease chapter in your biology book, for example, right? So you pull out the book, you pull out your notes, then you revise through the disease chapter, and then after you're done revising, then you pick up your chapter-wise question paper and search the disease chapter in that book. Now, what's interesting about chapter-wise question papers is that they contain all the questions from the past papers, but they are arranged chapter wise, right? They're arranged according to the chapters in the book. So you can easily find all the relevant questions of the disease chapter in your chapter wise question paper. It's all right to skip a few questions as there are a lot of questions. They come repeatedly, the same questions over and over again. So for those questions, and really the very, very easiest one are some of the questions that you can actually skip. Mark schemes are usually available at the end of the question paper of your chapterized question paper book, and you can easily cross-check your answers, right? So you write your answer to a question, then you quickly cross-check it from the mark scheme, and in that way you can really understand if your answer was correct or not. Now, mark schemes don't contain the actual answers to the question. What they contain is what points you should be mentioning or what points you should be avoiding while answering the question. So keep in mind, do not copy paste from the question, do not copy paste from the mark scheme. Follow this process for every chapter in your book, and in that way you will be able to finish the whole revision process ideally in only under 2 or 3 weeks. Now, that is the end of step 2. Now let's focus on what's important, what works and what doesn't. We know what works is skipping a few easy questions. It doesn't affect anything, right? You can easily skip them. But what doesn't work is copy pasting from mark scheme. Step 3. Solve actual year-wise question papers. Now, since you're done with your chapter-wise question papers, it's finally time to see what actual year-wise question papers look like, right? So usually in Edexcel and Cambridge, they have different number of question papers. For Edexcel, there are only paper 1 and paper 2, but for Cambridge, there could be more papers and there are alternative to practicals and other things. Now, for theoretical papers and alternative to practical papers, I would suggest that you solve one paper a day, right? And usually, I'd like you to go for, say, 10 years of question papers as part of your whole revision process, right? So, in that way, you will be able to recognize all these different question patterns. Don't waste too much time on getting every question right because remember, you're still in your preparation stage, right? So you won't be able to get each and every question right every time. So just take help from your notes, take help from the mark scheme, and just glide through all the questions that you come across. Because remember, the one and only goal that you're solving this year-wise question paper is that you understand what pattern of questions come and what the examiners want you to answer. Once you have solved a good handful amounts of question papers, it will become surprisingly easier to understand what the question actually wants from you, and it will be very easy to answer them. Now, at the end of step 3, let's look at what works. What definitely works is taking help from your notes and taking help from other people while solving the question papers. And what doesn't work is, well, not solving any question paper at all. Step 4. Doing mock tests. Now, this is of course the last step in the game since you're done with solving all the question papers, solving all the chapterized papers, done with your revisions. Now, the only one thing that is left now is to find yourself a good teacher who will be able to monitor you giving your mock tests. And mock tests are very, very important. Do not cheat in your mock exams. A lot of times, students try to deal with dishonor in this type of tests because I don't know, they may be feeling a sort of pressure that they have to do good in this type of mock test. But trust me, you don't. Mock tests are only there to find out what sort of problems you may have that is still unidentified. Now, if you cheat, that will remain unidentified forever and you will never be able to work on them. The problems can be a lot of things, right? They can be anxiety due to exam pressure. Or maybe they have some problem in some chapters that they do not understand the concept behind it, or there may be some other problems, or they may just be confused. But whatever the problem is, we will never be able to know this unless you give the test, right? Or you actually give the test with honor. Now, what I tell my students is that do not worry about the mock test results, right? Because they are only a test, they're not the actual international examination. And if you do not uh, do bad in this type of test, I'll not be able to know what sort of problems you have, and therefore I'll never be able to work on them. So, my suggestion to these parents and these students would be that do not become impatient, rather, give your mock tests and just find out what problems you have and work on them, right? How many mock tests should you be giving? Now, that is a good question because there is no definitive answer to it. You can give as much as you feel like it, but at least you should give, say, 3 or 4 mock tests for each individual paper. In that way, you'll be, I think, confident enough, right? Your problems will be sorted out after a few mocks. You'll be, you'll have enough time to work on those problems, and ultimately, you will have your confidence boosted. After each mock test, what is very, very important is that your teacher takes the time to actually check the papers and do a problem solving class with you, because without a problem solving class, you will obviously not know what sort of problems you had that got you less marks. What works, right? At the end of step 4, we definitely know that solving more and more papers definitely works, and doing the problem solving class with your teacher is very good. It should be done. But what doesn't work is cheating. It is the absolute worst. So, there you go. That is everything in short and summary on how you should be preparing for your international exams, be it O levels or L levels or AP. If you have any problems or any queries or questions, you can definitely knock me anytime. You can inbox me, and I'll be happy to help. Best of luck for exams until then.